In today's video presentation, we shall thoroughly analyze how the Monza race unfolded, both from Ferrari's viewpoint and Max's triumph in Red Bull. We discovered a significantly more competitive Red Bull at Monza with a less loaded rear wing, and this is suggested to potentially influence upcoming races and consequently the latter half of the championship. We could potentially witness a more robust Red Bull compared to the initial segment. It is essential to discuss McLaren and the internal communication exchanges within the team, particularly the position swap between Piastri and Norris, which favored the British driver. Additionally, let's listen to the statements from Leclerc, Hamilton, and Vasseur. First of all, I want to thank you for all the support. As I met many of you in Monza, I went there for work because Velo, a McLaren sponsor, called me for a work activity on both Saturday and Sunday. I recorded a lot of behind-the-scenes content. I was in the paddock club, pit lane, and even saw the McLaren garage up close, observing the work they do on the cars. I will be posting everything on Instagram, and if you don't follow me yet, my name is Rastro, so please make sure to follow me. I'll also leave the link in the description. That being said, regrettably, I was unable to spend a significant amount of time in the fan zone because I was there for work purposes and had numerous tasks to accomplish throughout the day. Those were indeed extremely busy days, but I was genuinely delighted to meet you at the circuit, and I eagerly anticipate more opportunities for us to see each other. With that being said, let's proceed. Naturally, to start, if you enjoy the videos, kindly leave a like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you won't miss any Formula 1 or Ferrari themed videos. With that being said, let's proceed. Ferrari has definitively demonstrated what many have suspected for several months. The SF25 cannot even be competitive on a track like Monza. Charles Leclerc finished in 4th place while Lewis Hamilton secured 6th, a result that perfectly encapsulates the limitations of the car, the best that could be achieved, yet far from expectations. But most importantly, far from the dream that fans had envisioned for the home event. The Monza crowd was record-breaking, but ultimately they had to settle for honoring the drivers under the podium, knowing it's not their fault if the car can't keep up. Ferrari had introduced technical innovations, a new floor, and the rear suspension seen during the course of the season, but the leap in quality was not observed. Piastri tried to smile, pointing out that the red car was only 4 seconds behind McLaren. It's a pity that in front there was a dominant Verstappen capable of putting 20 seconds between himself and McLaren. A huge gap in this Formula 1, and here's the point. When McLaren struggles, Red Bull wins, and when Red Bull is in trouble, Ferrari is never ready to take advantage. And this is the real problem. Ferrari has tried everything in the wind tunnels to optimize ground clearance, unload the wings to the maximum without burning the plank, and work on the DRS to gain on the straight. However, the SF25 continues to be challenging when it comes to braking and does not instill confidence in the drivers. The statistics demonstrate this. As a matter of fact, Leclerc achieved a speed of 352.8 km/h and Verstappen reached 352.5 km/h, both without the benefit of a slipstream. Hamilton with the slipstream clocked 363.3 km/h, just 0.8 km/h less than Albon, who was the fastest on the grid. The tire wear was too high in the early stages of the race, forcing the drivers to slow down. Ferrari also experienced some overtakes, with Piastri even passing Leclerc on the outside of the first Lesmo, a spot where overtaking is usually prohibited and rarely seen. The newly designed floor of the Red Bull RB21 nevertheless produced increased downforce without sacrificing top speeds, and Max Verstappen made a significant difference there as well. Ferrari continues to hold the second position in the Constructors' Championship with a total of 280 points, maintaining a lead of 20 points over Mercedes and 41 points over Red Bull. However, Red Bull effectively competes with only one primary driver, Max Verstappen. But it's a position that doesn't tell the whole truth, as the Ferrari fans wanted the victory at Monza, not to defend the second place in the Constructors' Championship. And yet, not even a podium was achieved. Leclerc himself summed up the weekend with a bitter phrase, "We're in the middle of nowhere." And he was right. Ferrari must cease pursuing unattainable objectives with a vehicle that possesses inherent structural deficiencies. The SF25 will never become a victorious car. We must therefore think about the future, focus everything on Project 678 and the work of new technicians who have arrived in Maranello with a view to 2026. The second place in the Constructors' Championship needs to be defended, but we must not harbor illusions. Monza showed that despite efforts, this car isn't a championship contender and never will be. The most concerning thing about this race in Monza is Red Bull's growth. Red Bull has grown tremendously since the summer break. Let's think about the race Maxi had in the Netherlands and also the race Verstappen had at Monza. The last two tracks where races were held are very different from each other, yet we have seen a very strong, almost dominant McLaren with a Red Bull Max's that manages to get in the mix. Sometimes he manages to outsmart Norris, sometimes he outsmarts Piastri, and sometimes he outsmarts both. So watch out for Red Bull, as 41 points in the Constructors' standings are not that many. Certainly, they compete with only a single driver, so this aspect should be emphasized, and it inevitably impacts the Constructors' Championship standings. Nevertheless, Max has rekindled hope among the enthusiastic orange supporters, and let me share something else with you. I was present in Monza, so I got a genuine sense of the prevailing atmosphere within the world of Formula One. I was situated in the McLaren area, the competitors of Red Bull, and I still observed a significant amount of support for the Dutch champion within the McLaren environment. Norris appears to be more adored than Piastri, although the fans exhibit a different interest, valuing Piastri more than Norris, as evidenced by the boos heard in Monza directed at Norris, also due to the position swap, which we will discuss later. But first, we need to analyze Leclerc's statements, which are very significant. Unfortunately, the 2024 celebration did not repeat itself. In the 2025 Italian GP, Ferrari finished off the podium with Leclerc in 4th and Hamilton in 6th. Finishing 3.5 seconds behind Piastri in 3rd seems good, but in reality it wasn't a positive weekend. In fact, the podium was impossible, and Leclerc himself said they are in the middle of nowhere. The stints in the McLarens were unexpectedly swifter than those of the S25. Ferrari ultimately found themselves primarily contending with Mercedes for the position of the third force against George Russell. After a promising beginning, Leclerc experienced significant tire warming issues, especially with the rear medium tires. With an exceptionally low downforce configuration that had already been observed in preceding days, the vehicle started to slide and the degradation intensified dramatically. However, on one hand, we have a Red Bull that is exceptionally lightweight, and they have also trimmed the rear wing flap, making it significantly smaller and reducing aerodynamic drag considerably. However, Red Bull has an advantage. It generates more downforce from the floor, which has also been updated in the Netherlands, and this gives positive feelings to Verstappen, who has been much stronger in the last 2 races. Conversely, Leclerc encountered greater difficulties, and we additionally observed the maneuver of overtaking on the exterior of the initial Lesmo executed by Piastri. Leclerc himself remarked, "However, at that point we lost a significant amount of time." The Ferrari weekend started well with a 1-2 finish in the Bray 1 tests. However, in qualifying, rivals improved engine mappings, refined or entirely changed setups like Verstappen, and closed the gap, eventually surpassing the Reds in both single-lap performance and race pace. Leclerc noted that during qualifying we knew competitors would close the gap. On Sunday we optimized everything, but Red Bull executed an extremely effective setup. McLaren was consistently faster than our team, and we found ourselves in a position that felt like the middle of nowhere. Even if there had been some errors from those ahead, it would have been challenging for me to secure a spot on the podium. So, what is Leclerc's outlook for the upcoming race? He believes there could potentially be a favorable opportunity during qualifying, since it's a circuit characterized by low aerodynamic resistance. However, the gap will largely depend on tire management, and he does not anticipate a significant improvement in competitiveness that would be enough to bridge the gap with McLaren and Red Bull. In my perspective, Ferrari opted for the ultra-low drag configuration for Monza, aiming to maximize their efficiency on the straight sections. However, the issue is that in this 2025 Monza race, the rear tires ultimately bore the consequences. When the tire loses grip, the temperature increases, traction diminishes, and the pace slows down. Red Bull has advanced the concept of minimal drag even further, which translates to reduced aerodynamic resistance without compromising support. This suggests that the aerodynamic package and mechanical configuration enable Red Bull to produce efficient downforce even with wings designed for low drag. For the Baku race, it is crucial to target securing pole position. However, during the race itself, a less aggressive selection regarding the rear wing angle becomes necessary to more effectively manage the rear tires and develop more adaptable strategies regarding pit stop timing. If you execute an overly aggressive undercut, tire degradation significantly increases. Until the SF25 broadens the operational window of the rear tires, it will continue to be the third force and reliant on the events of others to ascend onto the podium. And let's also listen to Lewis Hamilton's statements, who spoke about the current reality. Hamilton expressed satisfaction with the recovery, but he himself said this Ferrari is not podium material. Hamilton advanced from the 10th position to 6th place, having commenced with a 5-place grid penalty, and concluded the race in 6th, trailing 5 seconds behind George Russell, who secured 5th place. According to Hamilton, the race pace was commendable, yet the Ferrari SF25 as it stands today is not capable of reaching the podium. In his view, the optimal opportunity was executing the undercut maneuver on George Russell. The choice to extend the stint did not pay off. I am relieved and happy with the recovery. Probably with 6 years, they should have attempted the undercut on Russell. Focusing on the long term did not yield the expected results. And I also think the undercut on Russell made sense because with a track that had good front tire warm-up, it was possible to create the necessary gap before the dirty air disrupted Hamilton's pace. I personally, already present at the circuit and after viewing the race multiple times, instantly remarked, goodness, as soon as Hamilton approaches Russell, he ought to pit even prior to Leclerc, despite Leclerc being the leading Ferrari driver in terms of race standings, because at that point Leclerc was in 4th, Russell in 5th, and Hamilton in 6th. Nonetheless, despite this scenario, they needed to execute the undercut with Hamilton advancing forward, and then you would have had both Ferrari drivers in close proximity to each other, and you could have attempted to contain George Russell. Instead, by proceeding in this manner, you forfeited a P5 position to Russell, with Hamilton concluding the race in 6th place. This situation could have been circumvented as Mercedes was contending with merely one driver, Russell, whereas Ferrari had two competitors, both Leclerc and Hamilton. Certainly, we are not discussing the loss of numerous points. At this moment, Ferrari is not even competing for a podium position. They are the third strongest team, and solely if Verstappen, Norris and Piastri encounter difficulties might Ferrari potentially gain an advantage. However, relying on circumstances to reach the podium is a great disappointment. In the season where Ferrari was expected to be in the title fight, we need to look into why Ferrari discarded the soft tire. And the declarations from Vassar. Take into account that starting from lap 5, they instructed Leclerc to lift and coast even while under pressure. After some time, Bozzi reassures Leclerc that the lift and coast strategy is proving effective, allowing Leclerc to concentrate on managing the car's handling once the tires return to their optimal temperature range. Hamilton perceives the front tires more effectively, yet the rear tires deteriorate prematurely. Here's the crucial aspect. The soft tire possesses an exceedingly limited operational window, and the temperatures in Monza were excessively high. It is not feasible to compete on asphalt at 44 degrees with a soft tire that is challenging to manage. The only ones able to manage the soft tires were the McLaren drivers, who generally have more mechanical grip and more aerodynamics to handle the tires better. Indeed, theoretically, the soft tire might have been a viable choice for Ferrari. Nevertheless, the thermal risk was excessively elevated. Leclerc was quite astonished by the premature pit stop, yet the team deferred explanations until after the race, owing to the thermal management of the tires. Even Hamilton, who stopped on lap 39, didn't fit the soft tires, also because there were no new sets of soft tires, only 4 used ones, so it wasn't possible to risk putting on a used soft tire. Due to this, the selection of tires was nearly obligatory. However, let's examine together the reasons behind Max Verstappen's remarkable strength at Monza. He secured the pole position and additionally triumphed in the race. What can we anticipate from Max in the forthcoming races? Will he be there to compete for the victory alongside McLaren? Will Red Bull be the second force? Or will they compete with Ferrari? A 20-second advantage over the McLarens at Monza and the third victory of the season. For Max Verstappen, this represents a true masterpiece in a weekend meticulously crafted alongside the team on an ultra-lightweight yet perfectly balanced RB21. According to Helmut Marko, the distinction is not merely technical. Laurent Michier has transformed the approach Red Bull employs in preparing for the race weekend, incorporating simulations and driver feedback in a more analytical and efficient manner. Certainly, prep work has evolved a lot. Simulator work isn't accepted without scrutiny now. Instead, data is thoroughly discussed, carefully tested, and Max's vast experience is smoothly integrated with the team's track efforts. Max Verstappen now has more say in setup choices. Max pushed for better straight line speed. The team quickly acted, keeping drivability intact. Moreover, the technical direction has undergone a transformation because the updates that were introduced have performed as anticipated. However, most significantly, the low drag compromise was successfully achieved without causing the tire window to collapse. We recall that in the year 2024, Verstappen concluded the race in 6th position at Monza, trailing over 30 seconds behind the victor Leclerc. In 2025, the very same Max was 20 seconds ahead of a McLaren, which is dominant this season. In the first 10 laps, the pace was very high to get past Norris and then set a tire management strategy that lasted 37 laps, with the same set of medium tires without an evident drop in performance. And this is indeed the truly iconic aspect. Vettel successfully completed 37 laps on medium tires, consistently maintaining the same pace. With a very light rear wing configuration, the floor design still provided sufficient downforce to prevent excessive tire wear. There was no exhausting understeer that Max Verstappen has consistently complained about. There was still remarkable stability under braking, the traction remained clean, and even Andrea Stello acknowledged that Max Verstappen was indeed unbeatable. The reality is that the RB21 currently succeeds in generating clean and dynamic downforce with its wings while maintaining low drag. It possesses an efficient floor design and also exhibits excellent front-end quality upon entry, ensuring that the front traction is progressive and prevents sliding, unlike Ferrari. It will be intriguing to observe how it performs at Vesta shortly after Baku, and whether it can sustain the same pace as it did in Monza. Incidentally, I found it amusing when Max made a comment about the position swap at McLaren, where Piastri allowed Norris to pass due to Norris's slow pit stop. I witnessed this live because I was present there, and I remarked, when is Norris going to get moving again? Then I saw from the front left and understood the situation, but Max Verstappen cracked me up when he was informed by the team that Piastri let Norris pass. Verstappen remarked, "Oh, merely because he experienced a slow pit stop," and then he began laughing heartily. This once more illustrates Max Verstappen's dominance in Formula 1, showcasing how he perceives himself as the most formidable on the grid and even evaluates the actions of others. McLaren is also trying to favor Norris to make the championship more open. Norris has been with McLaren for a longer time and is an English driver, which is not to be underestimated, and therefore it also affects the relationship he has with the team. It is quite evident that Oscar presently possesses more, both in terms of speed on the track and psychological pressure. Nevertheless, McLaren does not wish to abandon Norris and does not want him to collapse mentally. So they try to make the situation as fair as possible. McLaren has stated that if the same situation had occurred in reverse, they would have acted accordingly. But if it had happened to Max Verstappen in Red Bull, he would have made the overtake on the track. So, what is my opinion on the swap of positions in McLaren? In my opinion, McLaren did well to swap positions because it is the best possible management of the drivers for them. It's an act of leadership because Andrea Stella understood that the championship is decided by details and that a divided team between Norris and Piastri would be McLaren's worst enemy. Please be attentive to these words as they represent the authentic reason. Andrea Stella is eager to prevent any division from forming between the drivers at this specific moment. In previous instances, we have already observed certain pairings that have imploded, such as Hamilton and Rosberg at Mercedes or Vettel and Webber at Red Bull. Certainly, Piastri might feel disadvantaged at this moment because the team favored Norris by swapping positions. However, it's also true that Norris was competitive throughout the weekend ahead of Piastri. The underlying rationale behind McLaren's strategic approach is to ensure the safeguarding of both of their drivers. If the roles were to be reversed, Piastri might potentially be able to leverage this particular situation to his own benefit. The question is how long this harmony within McLaren will last and how well the team will manage both drivers without them having to argue. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. How did you see Ferrari, Red Bull, Verstappen and McLaren? I'm eager to read and respond to all your comments. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe and activate notifications so you don't miss any videos on Formula 1 and Ferrari topics. That is all from Rastro for the time being.